The weekend is upon us. How about that? We made it, guys. Another Friday, another week in the books. And like I said in a live show that I just did about an hour ago, in the off season, the way I look at things is, every week is another week behind us, another week closer to the college football season, but we still have plenty of weeks to go. And that's why you should subscribe to Golden Bluetooth, because I am here to get you through the off season. Some of my best, not to give myself a pat on the back. It's not what this is about. But some of my best content is in the off season, because in the regular, if you think about this for a minute, guys. In the regular season, it's kind of easy because you have a lot of great games going on. You have storylines here and there. You have great matchups. You have a lot of stuff to talk about. It is the off season that really, really tests you. And let me tell you something. It's been a test. But thankfully, I have great subscribers like yourself that keep this channel going, and we just try to keep you entertained in the off season. That is the goal, to keep you here, to keep you watching, and to keep you entertained. Not all of what I put out are predictions. Some people still take it as predictions and say, "Oh, that'll never happen. You're crazy going to Blue." And I understand people are going to say that no matter what sometimes. But seriously, guys, you have to know that some of this is just for entertainment. Having said that, I do think that the Pac-12 is in trouble. Does that mean that I think the Pac-12 is going to go away? No, I don't. But I do think that the Pac-12, as we know it, is done. I do think that. I think we're about to see a massive shift, a massive change in what the Pac-12 looks like. They've already lost USC and UCLA. That was a massive hit. And I think there's some more losses to come. I really, really do. Here's the thing. If you are a fan of a team in the Pac-12, that's not necessarily bad news for you. Not necessarily, unless you're just so attached to the Pac-12 conference you don't want to let it go. Then maybe it's bad news. But some of the landing spots aren't bad. And even Washington State and Oregon State, if they get stuck in the Pac-12, the new look Pac-12 might not look that bad. Anyways, make sure to hit the like button. Even if you're watching the replay of this, you weren't able to catch the live show, please hit the like button. That's what helps these videos hit the YouTube algorithm and gets us more views, and that's what keeps the show running smoothly in the off season, all right? If you have a question, comment, or a troll attempt and you want everybody to see it, hit the super chat button. It is that little dollar sign that you see on the bottom right-hand corner. Anything you put in that super chat, I will put on the screen for everybody to see. I will read it, and I will address it to the best of my ability. And on top of that, it helps support the show. And, we always appreciate the donations, but in the off season, we appreciate it just a little bit more because the off season is tough. So all of those donations, we greatly appreciate. And FYI, for whatever reason, my cats are not happy with each other. So if you hear some growling, like right now, shut up. Get along. I'm doing a live show. Stop. Anyways, if you hear some growling, it's my cats. For whatever reason, they don't get, and they're brothers. So it's not like they're two cats that don't know each other and we put them in the same room. They're actually brothers, and they agree with, walk away, Munch. Just walk away. Yeah, go. There you go. They're learning. Anyways, on with the show. I do think the Pac-12 is in trouble. Listen, I am not a Big 12 homer, all right? Yes, West Virginia is in the Big 12, and I do think that the Big 12 is a decent conference, but I am not a Big 12 homer. If you've watched Golden Bluetooth for a significant amount of time, you already know that. If you're a newcomer, you might not know that. So this is not some homerism that I'm like, yeah, the Big 12's on they're on the higher ground. We're doing great, and the Pac-12 is a lesser conference. That's not what this is about. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing. So honestly, it looks like the deck is stacked up against the Pac-12. What happened was the Big 12 beat the Pac-12 to the punch. Two different sets of thinking. The Big 12's Brett Yormark was thinking, hey, we need to get this TV deal done, and we need to get it done now. The sooner, the better, even if it's not great. Well, the thinking of George Kliavkoff, the Pac-12 commissioner, is thinking, no, we don't need a TV deal right now. We're going to open the bidding to whoever wants, and we will take the highest bidder, and we think we can be competitive with the Big Ten and the SEC money. That strategy is not paying off even a little bit, not even a smidge. So the Big 12 grabs themselves a TV deal. Not great. It's not great. I'm not going to lie. It is not great. It's like $31.5 million per team per year, something like that. Still in better shape than the Pac-12, though, because the Pac-12 still does not have a TV deal. I heard that they did have a TV deal from ESPN, but then it was pulled. And I'm hearing it could be as low, and I'm talking combined, not just Tier 1 rights, combined with Amazon and ESPN. It is a total of around $21 million per team per year. That is not good. And here's the kicker. This is crazy, guys. I'm hearing that they're giving Tier 1 rights to Amazon. Why? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? I agree with you, Tim Prangley. USC was the conference with a little bit of Washington and a smidge, a dash of Oregon in there. Utah here recently, but overall, yes, I would agree USC. Listen, I do think that streaming is the future. But the future isn't here. The future is like 5 to 10 years from now. So maybe they're trying to get ahead of the curve. Yeah, you can use that excuse all you want. The fact is that the future is not here. Okay, so going with Amazon and streaming for your Tier 1 rights at $100 million, that means $10 million per team per year, 2-year deal with an option of adding 2 years onto that after 2 year. Insanity. Freaking sanity. Now, what I'm also hearing is that ESPN wants like the lower. I don't know how you break down Tier 1 rights, so I'm not understanding this completely. So this is what I'm understanding. That the majority of the Tier 1 will go to Amazon, and that just a little bit will go to ESPN, and ESPN will have mostly the Tier 2 and Tier 3. And for ESPN's deal, also $100 million. That is $10 million per team per year for a total of $20 million per team per year. Now I'm hearing the exact amount is going to be around $21 million, but that's not good at all, guys. On top of that, I heard that ESPN is purchasing about $10 million worth of content every year from the Pac-12 network for those 5 years to offset the $50 million that the Pac-12 owes Comcast. So no, you can't add that extra $50 million to the deal because it's going towards that deficit. I think some people are coming up with their numbers. They're adding on that $50 million that ESPN is purchasing, $10 million per year from the Pac-12 network, which they are keeping intact. They're trying to add that on to the other $20 million. No, that's not how this is working. That's to pay off the deficit. ESPN is helping out the Pac-12 by giving them a tip to help pay for the deficit, the mistake that they made because they relied on the Comcast booking. And the 2 senior executives discovered it, but they told nobody. So it just I don't get it. I really don't. Kadu, thank you for the $5 donation, says, well known that the media partners are pulling the strings on all this realignment. Agreed. Wouldn't be surprised if Fox/ESPN is working with Yormark quietly. That's a great comment. I don't necessarily believe it, but I wouldn't be surprised. Just like you, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what was going on. Because like the title of the video, the Big 12 sabotaging the Pac-12, it seems like Brett Yormark is trying to make decisions to sabotage the Pac-12 and strongly nudge the 4 corners into the Big 12. I even heard today that the Big 12 has been talking to freaking Fresno State for a while. Even if it's not serious, even if it's not a bluff, it still tells you that he's making decisions to try to get those teams to jump. He's trying to scare the Pac-12. And his first decision was a brilliant decision. Brilliant. By grabbing that TV deal early. Not a great TV deal. I've already said that. $31.5 million per team per year. It's not great, but it's a TV deal. Pac-12 still hasn't announced anything. Nothing. What I'm hearing is 21 per team per year. And so these decisions that Brett Yormark is making, it seems to just encourage, all but force those four corner schools into the Big 12. He really, really wants those four corner schools in the Big 12. As a West Virginia fan, not a fan. Not because I don't think it's good for the Big 12. I do think it's good for the Big 12. It is. But for West Virginia, it's terrible. It's more travel. It's just, it makes our road slate that much more difficult. But, you know, it's for the good of the Big 12, so I'll be okay, fine, whatever. We'll go with it. But Brett Yormark, every decision he's making is trying to encourage those four corner schools to join the Big 12. Here's the biggest misunderstanding that people have when they read the TV contract of the Big 12. Those four corners will never join the Big 12 because it states in the TV contract that only $20 million is guaranteed for those schools if they're a Power 5 school for joining the Big 12. No team is going to join the Big 12 for $20 million apiece. You are correct. No team would join the Big 12 if they're a Power 5 team for $20 million. But it doesn't say that's it. That's the guarantee. That's where it starts. That's the base pay. Okay? So it is, honestly, this is an encouragement clause. It's an escalation clause. Fox put that clause in there to encourage the Big 12 to go out and get Power 5 teams. That doesn't mean whenever you go get them, you're only going to pay those new members $20 million apiece. That would be crazy. The Big 12 would never expand again. Seriously, think about this. Because the guarantee is for $20 million if you're adding Group of 5, and the guarantee for Group of 5 is 0. If that was the end-all, be-all, the Big 12 would never expand again. Because the Group of 5 teams are not joining for nothing, and other Power 5 teams are not joining for just $20 million. And then splitting the rest of the pie. It's still like, I don't know, 22, 23 million, something like that if you split it all ways. Point is, $20 million gets them to the table. And then you can bring Fox back to the negotiating table and you renegotiate the TV deal. All right, this is what the deal looked like before these Power 5 teams. We need to restructure this and make it seem more doable. Even if it's still just 31.5 for every team, you still have to renegotiate and the total value would go up because you have more teams. So that $20 million that you see for a guarantee, if you're bringing in Power 5 team, that's just the starting point. That would make absolutely no sense whatsoever if that was ironclad, not going above $20 million. You're joining the Big 12 for $20 million, take it or leave it. You would never expand. Never, ever expand. And that's why I think there's still a chance, depending on what brand it is, there's still a chance, a possibility that the Big 12 could still grab Group of 5 teams. Two great examples before we move on. Memphis and USF. I do think that Memphis, if they brought in Memphis and USF, that it would bring some value. Not a lot. Maybe just enough to where everybody keeps making 31.5, including USF and Memphis. But it's not going to be 0. It's not going to be, you're just going to keep splitting the pie up. They're just, the reason they worded it that way in the clause is they wanted to encourage the Big 12 to go after Power 5 teams and not Group of 5 teams. But it doesn't mean that those teams hold absolutely no value in the eyes of Fox. It just means please focus on Power 5 teams. That's who we really want. There are some good Group of 5 brands out there, but Power 5 is who we want. All right, let's go back to the Pac-12. All right, let's go back to the Pac-12. First up, K-Do. Thank you for the $5 donation. Says, something to keep in mind. Fox values Big 12 basketball more than Pac-12 football. Wow. If that's true, which I'm not, Kadu, I am not calling you a liar at all. Not at all. I don't know that for sure. But if that's true, that would really tell you something. That would really, I think Kadu is, I think that's a little bit tongue in cheek. Maybe he's serious. I don't know. But if you really think about it, Big 12 basketball might be worse than Pac-12 football with USC and UCLA gone. Okay? You'd have to definitely include that to make that even seem sort of true, okay? Sort of true, even a little bit. Because if you include USC and UCLA, then no, not even close. But if you're counting USC and UCLA, then I could see the tongue-in-cheek, yeah, it approaches or it's close or similar, then I could see that. But you can't say that if you're counting USC and UCLA. But I do get your point. The Pac-12 is in trouble, and I am hearing that Washington is one of the maddest teams right now because they are not in favor of Tier 1 rights going to Amazon. They do not want the focus of the Pac-12 to be streaming as of right now because streaming is not the here and now. I do think it is the future of college football, but you have to take steps to get there. You can't just say, all right, we believe that's the future, so we're going to bring the future now, and you're going to lose money. If you want to give Amazon like Tier 3 rights just to, all right, we have a hold on it. We have a feeling that streaming is going to be the future, so we at least have a foot in the door. That way, when the future is here, we can bust the door open. You don't open the door now because there's nothing behind the door. And that's what the Pac-12 is doing right now, and Washington is not happy about it. I heard this crazy rumor, which I do not think is true, so don't take this to the bank at all. I heard this crazy rumor that Washington is so mad that they're thinking about going independent. No, they're not. No. That's not how that works. Notre Dame is really the only team that can pull that off. BYU was independent there for a while. They did okay, but not good. That's why they joined the Big 12 at $31.5 million. They weren't doing good independent. They were doing so-so. Washington, better brand than BYU? Yeah, I would say so, but still not a national brand. At least BYU was a national brand, and they still only did so-so. Washington, yes, they are mad that the Pac-12 is focusing on streaming, that the Pac-12 is focusing their rights on Amazon. Yes, they are mad about that, but they're not that mad. They're not that stupid. Washington is not going independent. Let me repeat that. Washington is not going independent. But let me just lay this out for you. The question is, Golden Blue Dude, how bad is it for the Pac-12 right now? Listen to this. Well, first up, the checklist. Who they have options with and who they don't. Fox, no go. TNT, CBS, NBC, no go. Apple TV, no go. It is Amazon and ESPN. That's it. Tier 1 rights, most of them going to Amazon. Don't like it already. But on top of that, the negative impacts on the bidders. In other words, negative stuff that's happened to the Pac-12 and the bidders of the Pac-12 at the same time. So this all goes together. The first negative thing is, well, the Pac-12 found out it owed Comcast $50 million. Their two senior executives knew it way back in 2017, and they said nothing. Think about this. If you're one of those senior executives and you knew that you were overpaid $50 million, wouldn't you say something? Because wouldn't you be scared that you were getting fired unless you're pocketing some of that money? Then you don't care if you get fired. I mean, splitting $50 million, that's $25 million apiece. That's way more than what they're making as executives. So I'm not going to accuse them of embezzling or stealing, but I'm just saying that's all that makes sense to me. That's why they didn't tell. So that's the first negative thing, and it happened directly to the Pac-12. The second negative thing happened to one of their bidders, and that's ESPN. Disney is laying off 7,000 employees, which prompted ESPN to pull their TV deal. So let me go back to what I said. The deal that I knew about was ESPN offering $100 million for 5 years. That's $10 million per team per year. I don't know if that's the deal that was re-offered after it was pulled, or if that was the deal before it was pulled and it could actually be lower. It could be worse than what I'm thinking. As bad as $20 million per team per year is, it could be worse. that could be the deal that ESPN actually pulled, and they're going to reoffer, and it's actually going to be lower. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying I don't know for sure. It could be worse. Disney lays off 7,000 employees, and that's what prompted ESPN to pull that deal. The third thing is Amazon has laid off 6% of their workforce. So they're hurting just a little bit. And finally, the last thing, an affiliate or a sub-branch of Google, which is known as Alphabet, cuts 12,000 jobs. So 2 of their bidders are taking hits financially. And then the Pac-12 itself took a black eye right in the face because they found out that they owed Comcast $50 million. Oh, man. And then people want to mention, well, we saw that the Pac-12 put out a unity video saying that, nobody's going anywhere. We're all in this together. We're holding hands. We're singing Kumbaya, and the Pac-12 is good to go. I also remember the Big East doing that as well right before it imploded. So if I were you, I would not put that much stock into that. I just wouldn't. It's not really a sign of anything, if you want to ask me. So I do think there's a big time chance that the Four Corners will go to the Big 12. I don't know if it will be this year, the year after. I do think it's within 5 years for sure. I think it's closer to the next 2 years. And it wouldn't shock me if it happened this year. So Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah, I do, in fact, expect them to go to the Big 12 sometime soon. Don't know when, but sometime soon. Oregon and Washington are the 2 question marks in my mind because in their minds, is it Big Ten or going down with the ship type of mentality? Because here's the thing. What if, okay, so the Four Corners take off to the Big 12, right? And the Pac-12 looks even worse. The Pac-12 continues to backfill with a group of 5. And the quality of the Pac-12 just keeps going lower, lower, lower. And no offense to the group of 5 teams that they bring in. Y'all are the best brands that they can find. But compared to what the Pac-12 was, it's not good. It's not good. Okay? It is what it is. It's like comparing, I'll even throw my own team under the bus. It's like comparing West Virginia to like a Texas. There's no comparison. Texas is just a way better brand than West Virginia. I don't really care for Texas. We have actually a decent rivalry in the Big 12. In fact, I don't know why they pulled the home game against Texas because it would have been the tiebreaker. That's right. West Virginia has beaten Texas as many times as Texas has beaten West Virginia since joining the Big 12. Compare that to Oklahoma. We've only beaten Oklahoma once. There you go. But the bottom line is Texas is just 10 times better, maybe 100 times better brand than West Virginia. It is what it is. 2 questions. Washington and Oregon. Are they committed to the Big Ten and that's it? Or if the Pac-12 starts sinking, would they be willing to jump to the Big 12? Even if it's just for a stepping stone to the Big Ten. Desperate times call for desperate measures, right? Pac-12 looks even shakier. You still don't have any offer from the Big Ten. What do? Do you stay in the Pac-12 as it still looks like it's sinking? Or do you join the Four Corners in the Big 12? I don't know the answer to that question. If it happens, we'll see what happens. I think they eventually end up in the Big Ten, so I'm still removing them from the Pac-12. I just don't know if it's directly to the Big Ten or if it's to the Big 12 and then to the Big Ten. But eventually, I do think Oregon and Washington will be out. Cal and Stanford, they have better academics. It's kind of an either-or situation. The Big Ten could take Washington and Oregon or Cal and Stanford. For the sake of argument, I'm just going to say that the Big Ten takes Oregon and Washington. It could be the other way around, but for the sake of the argument at hand, we'll just suppose that, all right? So the Pac-12 is down to Cal, Stanford, Washington State, and Oregon State. We already know that Pac-12 is talking to SMU, San Diego State. They're actually expected to add them as members. That brings you back up to 6. You need to get to 8 to remain a Power 5 conference. I think they should go out and get Fresno State and Boise State. Whether they actually do, whether you agree with me or not, that's not really the point. That's just my opinion, okay? My opinion. Boise State, great football brand. The academics aren't there. So the Pac-12 probably would not accept Boise State, but in my opinion, I think they should. Fresno State is interesting. That's the team I really want to talk about because I do think after San Diego State and SMU, the Pac-12 needs to really look at Fresno State if they're not already. They should already be looking at Fresno State, to be honest with you. You just lost USC and UCLA, right? At least try to soften the blow. San Diego State helps that much. Adding San Diego State and Fresno State would help that much. Every little bit helps. So there is absolutely no reason in the world why the Pac-12 should not be talking to Fresno State. They have every reason in the world to talk to Fresno State. But here's the thing. Now we're hearing rumors that the Big 12 has been talking to Fresno State. Not just today, not just the past couple of days, but for several weeks. This goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of the video. Brett Yormark is making decisions to scare the Pac-12 and to encourage people to jump. He is a very smart businessman. And he did make an announcement and say, me and the Pac-12, me and George Kliavkoff, we're good. I have no vendetta against them. We're good. We're not looking to add anybody from the Pac-12. That's exactly what he was supposed to say. That's exactly what he was supposed to say. Was he supposed to go, no, we're targeting teams from the Pac-12. We're going to try to sink that ship, and we're doing everything possible to sabotage the Pac-12, and hopefully they go under. Yeah, no, I don't see any commissioner coming out and saying they're directly targeting another conference. He said what he was supposed to say. He's smart. He knows what he's supposed to say. So he knows. That tells me he knows, just like me and just like most of y'all, that the Pac-12 at least should be talking to Fresno State. Now, whether they are or not, I don't know. I've heard that they've had brief conversations with Fresno State. To me, it should be more than that. I'm not the Pac-12, though. They're making their own decisions. So you do you, Pac-12. I think they should be talking to Fresno State. Brett Yormark thinks they should be talking to Fresno State because he comes out and says, or the Big 12 comes out and says, they've been talking to Fresno State, or people that are inside the Big 12, not necessarily represent the Big 12, say, yes, the Big 12 has been talking to Fresno State. So that tells me that Brett Yormark is continuing to play the mind games. Whether the Big 12 actually adds Fresno State or not, which I don't think we should. I don't think the Big 12 should add Fresno State. That would be a bad ad. I think it would be a good ad for the Pac-12. But the Big 12 doesn't need Fresno State. But it's smart for Brett Yormark to bluff or to at least make the Pac-12 think that they are going after Fresno State. Panic button. Some of the members in the Pac-12, they're hearing that. Oh, man, that's weren't we supposed to be talking to Fresno State? Now the Big 12, and it looks like they could get Fresno State. He's trying to make these teams panic. He's trying to make these teams panic. And it looks like it's working because over the past couple of weeks, I've heard Arizona is not happy. I've heard Arizona State is not happy. I haven't heard anything from Colorado or Utah. And now I'm hearing that Washington is not happy, but they're not happy because of the focus on streaming, because of the focus on Amazon. And I agree with Washington. That is a terrible move. But when you're at this point and you're running out of choices, what are you supposed to do? This goes back to making bad decisions in the past or not making any decisions at all. And now, little by little, it's forcing you to make bad decisions. Little by little, it's making you make bad decisions. If George Kliavkoff would have done what Brett Yormark done and tried to nail down that TV deal as soon as possible, it would have been great, just like the Big 12s. However, they do have 2 fewer members. So if the Pac-12 got the same exact deal as the Big 12, each team would actually make a little bit more, like $1 million or 1.5 million more. So they would make actually a little bit more per team per year simply because they have 2 less teams. So the Pac-12 should have tried to nail the TV down, and then we'd be talking about the Big 12 being in hot water. The Big 12 would be scrambling, looking for, oh man, Pac-12 nailed down theirs. People are backing out from us. We might be talking about the Big 12 possibly trying to get Amazon or trying to get ESPN, leverage on ESPN like George Kliavkoff. For whatever reason, George Kliavkoff thinks that the Pac-12 is worth close to what the SEC and Big Ten is. There was your first mistake, George. Why you thought that, I don't know. I mean, when was the last time the Pac-12s even made the playoffs? Point number 1. Point number 2, look at your TV ratings. Point number 3, look at the disaster that was the Pac-12 network. That is, excuse me, they're not discontinuing it. It's going to keep going. That is the Pac-12 network. Man, dude, how do you, I know you have to have confidence in your product. I understand that, but you can't oversell your product to where you're wanting way more than what it's worth and you're not willing to budge. When you say negotiation, I go high, you go low, I come down, you come up. He's not coming down. He's staying with it. And that makes ESPN like, oh, well, if you're not moving, we ain't moving. It's like he don't even have, oh my gosh. Wow. By the way, Tim Prangley says, go to Blue. The Pac has more wins than the Big 12 in the playoffs. Agreed. Not by much, and it's been a while. When you look at conferences and the quality of the conference, it's it's almost like everything else. What have you done for me lately, right? TCU just made the playoffs. They beat Michigan, got whipped by Georgia in the national championship, but they did beat Michigan and they moved on. Oklahoma represented the Big 12 3 years in a row, got beat every time, but represented. I think I don't know the exact year, but the last time the Pac-12 was represented, was it? I think it was Washington, because I think Oregon was, man, I can't. Those early playoffs just kind of run in together. I think Oregon made the playoffs first and then Washington, I think, because Oregon beat Florida State and got to the national championship. And then, wasn't that the first playoffs they lost to Ohio State? Dadgum. And then Washington. And that was like 6 or 7 years ago. I mean, we're talking about, people are forgetting that the Pac-12 is even a Power 5 conference because it's been so long since they've been to the playoffs. So 8 years. Yes, there you go. 8 years. Oregon beat Florida State, and I think they lost was it Auburn or Ohio State? Yes, it was Ohio State. They beat Florida State, lost to Ohio State in the first playoff. And then Washington got whooped by Alabama. There you go. Tim Prangley straightened me out. I'm telling you, whenever you live, some things that you know for sure, and you go live and you're thinking it off the cuff, yeah, it's like you forget everything because you're trying to focus on making a show but still getting the facts right. I don't know how Mark Rogers does it, but somehow on his live show, he still is able to nail down the facts. I knew those facts for the playoffs before the live show, but I didn't figure on needing to bring it up. So having to bring it up on the cuff, yeah, turn into a dummy. But yes, but the point is, it's been like 8 years. 8 years since the Pac-12 has made the playoffs. What in the world made George Kliavkoff, especially after losing USC and UCLA, what in the world made George Kliavkoff think that he was going to have anything close to an SEC or Big Ten contract? It just doesn't make sense to me. And what I tried to make clear at the beginning of this video is I'm not a Big 12 homer, and I'm not just bashing on the Pac-12. I'm not. In fact, I've said many, many times, I've felt like something's been missing from the playoffs because the Pac-12 hasn't been represented. They haven't been represented. And I'm old enough to remember when USC just dominated college football. And that was actually really fun to watch. It was. I actually liked watching it. I remember when Washington won their national championship, I think it was 1991. I remember that. I really do. Um, how old was I? I think I was 7 or 8 years old. And I remember we went to a thrift store, and it was the year that Washington won the national championship. And I saw a purple hat with the gold W, and it was Washington. And I told my dad, "Hey, I want this hat." He's like, "That's not West Virginia." I was like, "Yeah, it's Washington. They just won the national championship." He bought me the Washington hat. I did have a Washington hat, and the only reason I bought it is because I was a young kid, easily influenced, and Washington just won the national championship. So now you know the story about my Washington cap, which I don't think I have anymore. But anyways, the point is, being a West Virginia fan, I still enjoyed seeing representation from the Pac-12. I was hoping I would seriously appreciate the donation, Robert Perez. I was hoping that USC was going to beat Utah, not because I don't like Utah, and not because I necessarily like USC. It's because I wanted the Pac-12 to make the playoffs, because it's been so long. Now, having said that, we know that playoff expansion is happening. They're going to 12 teams, and the top 6 champions will make the playoffs. So we are guaranteed that the Pac-12 will make the playoffs. They will be represented. But what kind of Pac-12 is going to be represented? I don't think it's going to be a very strong Pac-12. Maybe Oregon and Washington stay in the Pac-12 longer than I think. 5 years, something like that, simply because it's an easier path to the playoffs. I got to see how that works first to totally decide whether Oregon and Washington is going to leave. Now, for the 4 corner schools, I do think they will leave for the Big 12, and I do think that deal will go up slightly, not significantly, slightly. And that will put pressure on those other teams to go somewhere else. Big 10, Big 12. I even heard ACC. No, I don't think that's going to happen. But I heard that the ACC talked to Oregon and Washington and tried to convince them, along with Cal and Stanford, to come join the ACC. Do I believe that? No, I do not. Not even a little bit. But if you think about it, geography-wise, it makes absolutely no sense. But as far as academically, they would be a perfect fit in the ACC. The ACC is a high-quality academic conference, except for Louisville. But besides Louisville, they're one of the better conferences whenever it comes to academics. So, yeah, I do think that Oregon, Washington, Cal, and Stanford would fit there. But would it make sense? That's the biggest question. Would it raise the revenue? I think it would, because let me back up a sec. If the ACC had the same type of TV deal as the SEC and the Big Ten, then I would say no. I would say adding Washington, Oregon, Cal, and Stanford would do absolutely nothing. But because the ACC's TV deal, as far as the revenue go, is so bad, then yes, I would say that Washington, Oregon, Cal, and Stanford would bump up the revenue just because of how bad the TV deal is. So is it worth a look into? I would say, but I don't know how likely that is. If the 4 corners leave and the Big Ten does not invite any of those teams, and they absolutely do not want to go to the Big 12 at all costs because they look down on the Big 12, academics, whatever, the ACC could be an option. Could be. This is not a prediction. That's not what I'm saying. But if all this other stuff happens, we could see some crazy scenarios, guys. Seriously. Okay? So, Pac-12 gets that crappy TV deal that we think. Teams start panicking. The 4 corners go to the Big 12. The Big 10 does not invite Oregon and Washington. The ACC's like, we're still interested. Seriously. If they're making more money, I know the traveling really wouldn't make that much sense. But if there's 4 of them, think about this as well. If there's 4 of them, then at least they would have traveling partners. It's not just like one team is having to fly across the country. So they had 3 games over here, and they'd have travel partners whenever they go across the country. That's all I'm saying. If you get enough of them going at the same time, it starts to make sense. Tim Prangley, thank you for the $10 donation. Says, thanks for keeping the CFB mojo rocking on a Friday night in February. Fight on. Let me reread that because I butchered that a lot. He says, thanks for keeping the CFB mojo rocking on a Friday night in February. Fight on. That's what we're here for, man. That's what I said at the beginning of the show. I said another weekend behind us. We're marching towards the weekend. We're going to get another weekend behind us because all my mind is getting to the next college football season. So the way I measure time right now is, oh, that's another week behind us. Oh, that's another weekend behind us. We are 1 week closer to the college football season in 2023. Yes, that is how my brain works. 100%. That's actually one of the main reasons why I have a YouTube channel. All my friends and family were like, dude, driving us crazy. You need an outlet. And then finally my brothers pushed me and said, dude, here's the camera. Here's the lights. You have no excuse. Look at this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. If they can do it, you can do it. Do it. So they finally got me to do it. And I still go back and watch some of my earlier videos just to see how bad I was at once. If anybody out there is watching this and is wondering if they should, what they should do, or if they should start a YouTube channel, stop. Just do it. You will make mistakes, but the sooner you make those mistakes, the sooner you can improve. If you're scared of making mistakes, then you'll never do what you'll truly want to do in life. Think about that, people. If you're scared of making mistakes, you will never do what you truly want to do in your life. That is a fact. Appreciate you, Bobby Hernandez, for the $10 donation. Really appreciate that. Like I said earlier, we always appreciate donation, but here in the off season, college football fans lose interest, so those donations are even more appreciated. So appreciate you, Bobby Hernandez. And that's what we're here to do. We're here to get you through the off season. That is my job. The regular season, that's easy. You have games going on. You have championships going on. You have storylines and matchups. That's easy. It's the off season that gets tough. You got to keep your audience engaged and watching and interested. And that's why I don't do prediction videos. I do entertainment videos with some news sprinkled in here and there. I have a few close friends, and they're not going to mind me saying this. And I consider them close friends, close YouTube friends, not like real life friends, but I know them through YouTube, and we talk on the phone and on StreamYard, and we do shows together. Tony Altimore and Jeff Grimm. Now, they're saying that the Pac-12 is fine, that they have a decent TV deal, that it could either rival or exceed the Pac-12. And I actually look for information going in that direction because I actually want the Pac-12 to be fine. Like I mentioned earlier, I've missed the Pac-12 being represented in the playoffs. I'm not anti-Pac-12. I'm not hoping that the Pac-12 goes down in flames. That is not what I'm hoping for. I'm not. Seriously. So I've been trying to look for information that points towards the Pac-12 actually is fine. They have a TV deal. They're good to go. The TV deal is good. The teams are happy, blah, blah, blah. The only thing positive that I've seen from the Pac-12 that could even remotely go in that direction was the Unity video. That's it. There's nothing else. And then on the other side of the aisle, I'm seeing video, article, TV, everything saying another blow to the Pac-12. Pac-12 still doesn't have a TV deal. Arizona's not happy. Arizona State's not happy. Now Washington's not happy. CBS says that Brett Yormark outmaneuvered, outclassed, outbusinessed George Kliavkoff. Maybe it is an agenda and they're just trying to get everybody against the Pac-12. I'm not buying that. There's no information out there that tells me that the Pac-12 is fine. That's why I've been making these videos. I'm not making these videos because I'm anti-Pac-12. Not at all. In fact, if it was the other way around, then I would be making videos praising the Pac-12, saying, all right, Pac-12 is good. They have a TV deal. they could look at this team. I would be making videos about the Pac-12 picking off the Big 12. It would be totally opposite. I go by what I'm seeing, what's being told, the information that's out there. And then I make entertainment scenario videos. And right now, every direction that I see, it's all negative for the Pac-12. And that's why I make these videos of, where are these teams going to end up if the Pac-12 does go down? I don't know. Is it a better chance for Cal and Stanford to go to the Big Ten, or for Washington and Oregon? Or what about Washington and Stanford? Is it a deal breaker for Stanford if they can't go for Cal? I don't know all the ins and outs of the Pac-12. That's why I talk to people like Tony Altimore. That's why I talk to people like Tim Prangley, people that know the Pac-12 more than I do. Because for me, it's just a guess, and I have to go by what I see. I don't know what type of, are they joined at the hip? If you take Stanford, you have to get Cal. Is it a loose affiliation? If you take one, you don't have to take the other? Because if that's the case, then I would say the best possible move for the for the Big Ten, if the ACC does not dissolve, which that's separate, I'll get to that here in a second, would be Washington and Stanford, because you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting Washington, great football brand, great fan base, pretty good, maybe not national brand, but close to it. It's pretty big. And then you would get Stanford. You'd have the elite academics. You're not just getting two academics with Stanford and Cal, but you're getting the football with Washington and the academics with Stanford. Because I don't think they would take Washington and Oregon. And Oregon fans, I know I have a lot of subscribers that are Oregon fans. I do. So this is not me bashing Oregon, but Oregon's football brand is not as valuable as Washington. It's just facts. I will say this. I will give Phil Knight, the owner of Nike, a lot of credit. A lot. Because he is a genius. He has made Oregon football look bigger than what it is. That's genius. That is genius. There's a reason why Autzen Stadium only holds 54,000. If Oregon was this massive national fan base, huge draw, wouldn't their stadium be a little bit bigger? I mean, at least 60,000, because that's what West Virginia holds. I mean, and I do think that Oregon's football brand is bigger than West Virginia's. I do not misread that. I'm just saying, if it was as big as people think, wouldn't they have a bigger football stadium than West Virginia? And that's low on the branch. I'm not comparing you to like Alabama or Tennessee or Penn State or Michigan or Ohio State or Texas or Oklahoma or USC or even Washington. 90 and 100,000 seat stadiums. I'm saying 60,000. Henry Green, thank you for the $5 donation, says, in your opinion, is Tulane out of luck on expansion? Too late to the table? In my opinion, well, here's the thing. For whatever reason, it seems like me and the Pac-12 don't think alike. In my opinion, I would say no. I think the Pac-12 needs to go after Tulane right now. I think it's a no-brainer. Tulane has AAU status, great academics. Their football is on the rise. They just won the Cotton Bowl. They just won the AAC. And the feather in the cap is they just came back in a thrilling game and beat USC. Sorry, Tim Prangley, but I'm addressing Tulane. I had to mention that. So I would say no, but I'm not the Pac-12. I don't make decisions for them. So it could be to no fault of their own. They've done what they should in this past year. Cats, what do y'all stop? Every time I go live, my cats, I swear, they know, and they try to get my attention. I would say no, but again, I'm not Pac-12. I don't think, I know the Big 12 is not going to take them. I know the Big 10 is not going to take them. I know the SEC is not going to take them. It would be down to the Pac-12 and the ACC. And the reason, like I said earlier, I'm going to talk about the ACC here in just a second. The reason I would mention the ACC in the same breath as Tulane is there's still that chance that the ACC could dissolve. Now, there's a chance that it might not. It might stay locked in till 2036. But there are some loopholes in that grant of rights. First off, the team could pay $500 million. That's not going to happen. But I'm saying, that makes it not ironclad. It just means it's super, super expensive. Then the other loophole is the majority vote to dissolve the grant of rights, and then the teams can go wherever they want. Here's the thing, and this is what I would be thinking about if I were the ACC. The more teams you add, even if they're not super fantastic, awesome, amazing brands, the more teams you add, the higher that number goes as far as number of teams needed to vote to dissolve the grant of rights. So you could add a Tulane, who, by the way, has great academics. They would be an asset to the ACC in the academic area, and their football program is okay, up and coming, not great, not good, okay. And it would help with the numbers as far as too many teams needed to vote to dissolve the grant of rights. I think the number now is 8, but the more you add, the more teams you would need, and that 8 would probably stay at 8, and the ACC would survive. And they could be thinking in the future, like, okay, what if we do lose these brands? And you could backfill before you lose them. So, yes, I would put the ACC on the table. Maybe not too seriously, but definitely something to think about. Memphis, and I made a video on this earlier today. Somebody left a comment on one of my videos saying, Memphis didn't pour $200 million worth of, now they're saying $250 million worth of renovations into the Liberty Bowl for no reason. If you sit down and think about that, that makes sense. Why would a team or a university just decide right after, it's time to renovate our stadium? Not just renovate, but $250 million. We're not talking about I don't know, what was it? 40 million Boise State put in, or 50 million, something like that, which is still a lot of money. We're talking about $250 million. I think somebody might have, there's a possibility that the conference said, hey, if you renovate your stadium, and we mean renovate, big time, massive, you already have the backing of FedEx, so you have that sponsorship, you would bring that. You have a footprint in the state of Tennessee, which is strong. You have a decent fan base. Your football brand is one of the better football brands in the AAC, not one of the best in the nation, but in the AAC. I think Memphis is the best brand remaining in the group of 5. And it could be either the Big 12 or the ACC. And the argument that people give for the Big 12 is there's that clause that states if they add a group of 5 team, there's no guaranteed revenue bump. So they would basically be joining for nothing. That's not what that means. What that means is there's just no guarantee. But if Memphis pours $250 million into the Liberty Bowl, and that stadium, the Liberty Bowl, is where the Liberty Bowl, the bowl, is played. And guess what? The Big 12 has a spot in the Liberty Bowl, the game that's played in the Liberty Bowl, the stadium. Maybe the Big 12 is interested in Memphis. And they said, hey, we really need you to renovate that stadium. We already have a bid to the Liberty Bowl, and we're not really fond of, that stadium. So if you do us a favor and heavily renovate that stadium and make the Liberty Bowl more pleasant for our bowl, we'll invite you to the Big 12. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened. I'm just saying it does make sense. It does. And, the connection would be there. And yes, it states that there's no guarantee if they add a group of 5, but that doesn't necessarily mean there wouldn't be a bump, because you can always renegotiate when you add teams. That was put in there to encourage the Big 12 to add Power 5 teams. It doesn't mean there would be no race and you just have to split the pie one more time. It was just an encouragement to add Power 5 votes. Cyclone Steve, thank you for the $2 donation, said, ACC disband votes. Wouldn't they oppose expansion? Yeah. you're probably right about that. I didn't even think about that. That's a good point. That is a good point. So, whenever you invite somebody, you do have to get all the presidents to vote to accept the new members. So those members that want to vote to disband, unless they're not thinking ahead, could be like, if we add these teams, that's going to add more numbers, which means our chances of leaving go down the tube. So that could actually counteract that. I didn't even think about that, Cyclone Steve. So if the ACC ever did expand, it would mean that those teams that's a vote of confidence that the teams want to stay. That's not a bad video idea, Cyclone Steve. I'm telling you, this is how my brain works, guys. I don't know. That's how I come up with video. I see comments in the comment section of my regular videos, super chats on the channel, regular comments, and it just happens, and I appreciate it. And that's where I created the Get It Gang, which was the name that I created for the group of people that leave video ideas and make videos. And the off season has been way easier because of the Get It Gang. Larry Pilgrim, thank you for the $5 donation, says, networks are trying to cut the fat. Bringing G5 teams is counterproductive. They don't need the inventory. You're correct, but at the same time, it depends on what situation you're looking at and what conference you're talking about. So for the Big Ten and the SEC, I don't think they will ever add a Group of 5 team. To your point, cutting the fat, you don't want to add any nonsense to it. But when you get down to the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the ACC, it's a little bit of a different story, especially the Pac-12 and the Big 12. The Big 12 just added BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston. Now, they could stop there and never add a Group of 5 team ever. And in their TV contract, it discourages adding a Group of 5 team. I just think the one brand that could be outside of that rule is Memphis. And it's because they're in Tennessee. It's because they do have a decent fan base. And they have the sponsorship of FedEx. And now they're pouring $250 million of renovations into the Liberty Bowl. And the Big 12 plays in the Liberty Bowl, and that bowl is played in the Liberty Bowl, the stadium. And they could have worked out some type of situation or some type of deal where they had Memphis pour in. Who knows? Maybe the Big 12 helped fund it. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there. So they have Memphis renovate that stadium, and their reward is they accept Memphis, and maybe they grab a Power 5 team with them, or maybe they just add Memphis, because remember the rule of if you have 12 or more members, you have to have divisions in order to have a conference championship. That is out the window. So the Big 12 could add Memphis, and that's it. 13 members, and they're done until they get some Group of 5 teams. So, yes, I agree with your comment, but I do think that Memphis can exist outside of that comment that you just made because of everything that I just mentioned. But, yes, I do agree with you to a certain extent. I just think Memphis would add something to it. And I think specifically for the Big 12, it would be a good add because it would also be a bridge university between the East teams and the West teams. Because remember, you have Cincinnati, West Virginia, UCF, and then you have everybody else. Well, Memphis is right in the middle, so it could help with the travels of Cincinnati, West Virginia, and UCF. Clint Moses, me, and everybody else that's a college football fan, we know, we understand, we accept that the Big 12 is not worried about academics. So we just know that. That's not part of this argument. Big 12 is not worried about academics. They're not like these other conferences. It is what it is. It is what it is. Anyways, I think Memphis would fit the Big 12 is my point. I think they would. I think their basketball brand would benefit from that as well. I do. I think Memphis basketball brand would need to be in the Big 12. It would help with the money and the revenue and even attendance, because AAC basketball It's not good. It is not good. As much as AAC football gets dumped on, it's great, amazing compared to AAC basketball. Houston is the outside liar. Houston is a great basketball team in the AAC, but everybody else, the fan bases just they don't care. They really don't care. Speaking of basketball, hopefully West Virginia wins tomorrow. We have to beat Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State. Our 3 home games. I'm not worried about Kansas and Iowa State on the road. I don't think we will do that. If you look at the Big 12 in basketball, they just don't win on the road. Everybody beats everybody at home. Road teams just don't win in the Big 12. It's something crazy. Seriously, look at the road records of even the better teams, the best teams in the Big 12. Nobody wins on the road. So I'm not even worried about the road trips to Iowa State and Kansas as long as we win our home games. But in case people came in late after I talked about Washington and you saw the title of the video, the reason why Washington is mad is they're not happy that the Pac-12 is focusing on streaming and Amazon for Tier 1 rights. They're not happy about that at all. And there was some rumors, and I squashed these rumors. These are absolute rumors. It is not true. There were rumors that Washington was so mad, so upset about the Pac-12 focusing on streaming as far as Tier 1 rights that they were thinking about going independent. Washington is not thinking about going independent, but they are mad that the Pac-12 it's not locked down yet, but from what I'm hearing, the Pac-12 will give most of their Tier 1 rights to Amazon, and I think that's just absolutely crazy. And I think that Washington has every right to be mad at the Pac-12 for handing over the Tier 1 rights to Amazon. I mean, I don't even know that many people that have Amazon TV that watch anything on Amazon. I'm sure there are people out there because it's a platform. But from what I understand, it's mostly for like the entertainment industry. I don't know a lot of people that talk about Amazon Sports. I don't hear about it at all, to be honest with you. So honestly, if the Pac-12 were thinking about going to a streaming platform, I would say YouTube. I think YouTube is the next step as far as streaming these live events. We already know YouTube channels that do it, and they have issues with YouTube, and YouTube takes them down, but some of them figure a way around it. I think in the future that there will be actual partnerships to where they can air TV football games on YouTube TV without there being any monetization issues. So if you're going to do that, I would have looked at YouTube. If you're focused on the future and saying streaming is the future, we're going to try to get a leg on this, YouTube would have been the way to go. Amazon, I just don't understand it. And Washington, I understand why you're angry. I would be angry too, but I do not see them going independent. UW to the ACC Peninsula piece says, I did a video on that. I do think that that's possible, not likely, but possible. And I have heard, some rumors that they've actually talked. I don't know what happened with those talks, or if they were serious, or if they're still talking. But I did hear that they had talked at some point, and I do think it makes sense to a certain extent. So maybe it's something to fall back on. But my question is, how would the ACC schools feel about it? Because as much as I've talked about, think about this, guy. As much as I've talked about the ACC voting to disband the granted rights, it still hasn't happened. Meaning it still hasn't happened. Meaning those teams do want to be in the ACC. They're waiting on some things to happen. That makes me believe that there are some irons in the fire, and they're waiting to see if those irons pan out. So I do believe that the teams are there, but I also believe that the teams really do like being in the ACC. They just don't like the money. And perhaps one of those irons that they're waiting on is talks between the ACC and Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and Cal. And that would be a tremendous addition to the ACC. To me, that would make a lot of sense. I actually think that the ACC would be interested in those teams. I think the burden would actually fall on Washington, Oregon, Cal, and Stanford as to would they be willing to make that cross-country trip, because you can only guarantee 3 games in your own time zone. Then the rest of the road games are on the road. I mean, you can work out the schedule, manipulate the schedule somewhat, but I mean, the bottom line is you're going to have some away games over there. Maybe it's only 2 or 3, but still, that's long trips. So if you have, let's say they have 9 conference games and 3 of those are with each other, so you still have 6 left. Let's say 3 of those are home and 3 of those are away, so that's still three trips to the Eastern time zone. Now, what you could do is split them up to where one's at the beginning of the year of the conference games, one is in the middle, and then one is at the very end. So you could spread them out so they're not as, ridiculous. Or you could put them all 3 together. That way they just do them back to back to back, and then they don't have to worry about going back to the East Coast. There are ways around it. So, I do think it would benefit the ACC if they brought in Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and Cal. I was thinking Big 12 plays 9 conference games. ACC plays 8. So that actually goes down to 5 games. And they could work out 2 on the East Coast and 3 home games for them. So it is doable. They'd have to flip-flop it. 1 year, 2 road games on the Eastern time zone, and then the other game, 3 games in the Eastern time zone, and then rotate like that. So if they went with 8 conference games, it would be even more doable. But adding 4 members, would they go to 9 conference games? I don't think so, because that would hurt the Western teams. So in the negotiations, they would be like, well, we got to stay at 8. We don't want one more trip. So I would say 8. The SEC, you know what? I got to give the SEC credit. If you look at the SEC schedule, they rarely schedule true road games out of conference. And their in-conference games are 4 home, 4 away. So you see a lot of these SEC teams, and some of them just have 4 road games all year, a majority of them. So every once in a while they get 5. Rarely do you see 6 unless they're Vanderbilt. West Virginia just had back-to-back years of 6 true road trips. Last year we had 6, 2 out-of-conference road trips, and then 4 in-conference road trips. This year we also have 6, 1 out-of-conference road trip, and then 5 in-conference road trips. So I am not knocking the SEC for what they do. It is very, very smart. They are protecting their brands. The less road trips your teams in your conference have, the less of a chance they have of tripping up and picking up a loss that they shouldn't pick up. Alabama was very, very close to picking up another loss to Texas on the road. They won by 1 point, but both of their losses were on the road. Close losses, yes, but they lost to LSU on the road, and they lost to Tennessee on the road. So now you know why the SEC schedules the way they do. And it's smart. You can knock them all you want. You can talk down on them and call them soft and this and that. But honestly, I wish the Big 12 scheduled that way. West Virginia guaranteed to have just 4 home and 4 away in conference, and rarely schedule a true road game. Most of the out-of-conference neutral games. And if we wanted to do like home and home with Pitt and Virginia Tech, I'm fine with that. But this nonsense of 4 road trips this year, 5 road trips next year, and then on top of that, we schedule a road trip on the year we have 5 road trips in conference, and then 2 road trips in the years that we have 4 road trips in conference. We have to start doing ourselves a favor and scheduling easier. We need to play the toughest schedule possible and test ourselves. Screw that. Stop. You end up tripping yourself up early in the year, lose momentum, and then the rest of the year is crappy. I remember, and the SEC still does this, I remember when West Virginia would have like 3 or 4 easy games. We'd start off 4-0, but we're like, now the tough teams are coming. Now we know how good West Virginia really is. But We didn't have to worry about tripping up in those first 4 games. We need to go back to that, just like the SEC does. In FCS, a couple of group of fives, and then a neutral site game against a Power 5 team, and call it a day. And then the rest is conference. I'm sick of this trying to over schedule. It's just stupid and it's not working. Anyways. Bottom line is, I do think the Pac-12 is in trouble. A lot of things against them. Not just they don't have a TV deal, but even the people that are interested in giving them a TV deal have taken hits. It's just a lot of negative things, and I'm trying to find positive things to talk about and say, oh, no, actually the Pac-12 is going to be fine. But adding SMU, that does not. Pac-12, man. You got to throw me a bone to talk positive about you. And adding SMU just doesn't do it. San Diego State, yes. You should add San Diego State. But you need to be adding like a Fresno State with San Diego State, not SMU. I mean, and they're near DFW. That's it. They're near DFW. Their fan base, they don't pull a large fan base from DFW. They're not going to help with a footprint in the state of Texas other than they're located in Texas. That is it. That is all they do for the Pac-12. So why they're going after SMU, I don't know. And even when Brett McMurphy was on that SMU YouTube channel, there were SMU comments that were leery about going to the Pac-12. That's how bad the Pac-12 looks right now. SMU fans are like, should we? Yeah, it's not good. So, Ed, I understand that they think it's going to help with the Pac-12 recruiting in Texas, but it really, I mean, how? You have one team who's SMU that plays in the Pac-12. We want our son to go to SMU because they play in the Pac-12, or we want our son to go to Arizona because we'll get to see him once every 4 years or once every other year at best when they play at SMU. No, I don't think it helps that much with recruiting. Maybe a start, but you need to add a few more teams if you really want to help with recruiting in the state of Texas. In fact, I would say that Rice makes more sense because Rice has way more academics than SMU. I don't know about the fan base. Probably about the same because SMU can't fill a 32,000-seat stadium. But academics, Rice blows them out of the water. So I do think that Rice would add something, at least something, to the Pac-12. Anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. I try not to go too long because at certain points you just start rambling and repeating yourself. And when I start noticing that, that's when I'm like, all right. Time to shut her down, and it's usually around an hour. We made it to an hour and 12 minutes. There we go, an hour and 12 minutes. Anyways, hopefully you were entertained, and honestly, I hope that the Pac-12 doesn't go away. That's not what I'm hoping for, and I don't think that the Pac-12 will. Do not take that out of this live show. I just think the Pac-12 as we know it is done. I do think that the Pac-12 will continue to exist, but it's going to look completely different. I think, let me rephrase it. This is how CBS thinks that the Pac-12 could look in the next 5 years. Cal, Stanford, Oregon State, and Washington State remain 4. And then they add SMU and San Diego State. That's 6. And then Boise State and Fresno State. That's 8. And you know that the Pac-12 would be in desperate mode if they ever added Boise State because they've already said they would never do it because of academics. If that happens, that's when you know the Pac-12 is desperate. Although I think it would be a decent addition because I think Boise State has a good football brand, but they don't meet the academic requirements. But anyways, we'll see what happens. We'll see if Brett Yormark was bluffing as far as, these rumors that the Big 12 was talking to Fresno State. And the Big 12 is trying to sabotage the Pac-12, trying to scare the Four Corners into joining the Big 12. Eventually, these things either have to happen or not happen. So we will all see together what actually happens. Hope you guys enjoyed this live show. Please please hit the like button on the way out. And if you're watching the replay, we would ask you to hit the like button as well. It still helps. It still helps YouTube suggest this video on the algorithm. David Z, thank you for the $2 donation, says, Yormark better than entire PAC leadership team by a mile. I would agree with that. Yormark is better than the entire PAC leadership, the entire team, the entire Pac-12 leadership team by a mile. I would agree with that. I think Brett Yormark outsmarted the Pac-12 tremendously by grabbing that TV deal sooner rather than later. They had something in writing, concrete, good to go. And think about this. The Big 12's TV deal didn't run out until a year later. The Big 12's TV deal ran out after the Pac-12, but they still jumped in line and got the TV deal before the Pac-12. That is a smart businessman. He knew it wasn't about getting the best TV deal right now. He just knew there was only so many opportunities left, so it was more important to get a TV deal, a decent, not great, but just a decent TV deal. And he did it, and now the Pac-12 is paying for it, and the Pac-12 is hurting right now, guys. It is hurting. And Washington is not happy about the potential Amazon deal because it's looking to have the majority of Tier 1 rights. Not good, guys. Not good. Make sure to hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to Golden Blue. Tell somebody about this crazy thing that you know about. Golden Blue Dude. Say there's this crazy guy on YouTube. His name is Golden Blue Dude. Go check him out. He talks about college football. He rants and raves. He obsesses about conference realignment. But he's entertaining. He's entertaining. Go check him out. We have some entertaining and some good times over here. Some laughs. I'm out of here, guys. I'm running out of steam. Not gonna lie, running out of steam. Y'all have a good night. I don't think I'm gonna have a live show tomorrow, but we might be able to come back on Sunday. We have some changes coming as well. We're working on a sponsor. I'm working on the ad for that. So you'll see about that. So Golden Blue Dude is definitely taking steps forward. And it's thanks to you guys, man. You guys have made Golden Blue Dude. We have grown by leaps and bounds. And people are starting to notice. People are starting to notice. So I appreciate everybody. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. And y'all have a good weekend. And if I don't see you on Sunday, I will most definitely see you on Monday. You know what? I would rather be sponsored by Pepsi. But you know what? If Dr. Pepper decided to sponsor me, I would take it. I can handle Dr. Pepper. My brother loves Dr. Pepper. Anyways, I got to end this, guys. Y'all keep reeling me back in, but I got to end this. Y'all have a good evening. And Golden Blue Dude is, officially out.